Hey, I'm Danny Z, and I am thrilled to introduce this documentary and represent all the co-authors who put themselves on the line for this book, Born to Risk. I have spent a significant part of my life embracing the challenges of risk-taking and pushing the boundaries of who I am. I've done 15 Got Talents worldwide, I have a number of world records, and I'm constantly looking for the next hill to climb, the next box to climb out of. It doesn't matter what I am against, I embrace the challenge and I try to find the best version of myself. I'm honored to stand here beside Emilio and Daniela Roman. I can't believe the risk that they took to bring all of these courageous authors together to produce such a fantastic book. As we continue on this journey, I want you to know that you can be a part of something in the future with us, whether it's a documentary or a book. You can find all of that at borntorisk.com. I want to take a moment to thank all the co-authors who have contributed to this book series and documentary. Your stories are the heartbeat of Born to Risk, and your courage in sharing them is what makes this project so impactful.
We have fire!
I want to reiterate the importance of sharing and learning from risk-taking experiences. You don't have to be locked in a box and lit on fire to learn, but you should pay attention to life as it happens around you.
That box is getting awfully wobbly. Will Danny Z be down with it? There it goes! Will Danny Z be down with it? Put it out! Put it out! Put it out!
Welcome to Born to Risk.
The greatest risk I've ever taken was joining the United States Marine Corps at age 26. I had to leave my son and my daughter behind. My son missed me, my daughter missed me. There was memories that I will never, ever get back. It was a really tough decision because I became an absentee father. It was also challenging when I entered the Marine Corps because many young men and women at that age, this was their first job, and yet I had to answer to them. That was challenging. Fast forward, we went overseas, found myself in Kuwait, peaceful time, doing security drills there, but something happened where I was attacked at a gate. Fast forward, my name ended on the president's desk. It was a time that created a lot of stress when I came back home. I suffered with post-traumatic stress because of that one incident. While my time in service, something else had happened, which had triggered a childhood incident where I was molested not once but twice by family members. And so when you're in the military, you're in close quarters. This is what I signed up for. I found myself running drills, situations where it brought back memories, and the military has me down for what's called military sexual trauma because it happened while I was in active service. So I'm grateful that today I have benefits. So these are the rewards today. But it wasn't easy. So I have a passion to help veterans fight for their benefits. I'm also blessed for the reward today that we put on a Thanksgiving dinner for veterans. So that pain, that suffering I went through sucked. But today, I am blessed. We help authors share their story very much like what you're seeing here. We get their stories in books, we get their stories in documentaries. Life shrinks or expands according to one's courage. And I'm so grateful for those men and women that have the courage to serve, to enlist, to support us so that you and I can enjoy the freedoms that we have today. And I'm going to continue to serve our beloved veterans wherever I can. And I'm going to also encourage you to remember that in life, the greater the risk, the greater the reward.
Imagine coming home and finding all of your things packed up on the front step. This is what happened at 18 years old. An argument had happened the night before with myself and my parents because I had broken curfew. Things escalated and I was asked to leave. So I did. I went to a friend's house for the night, went to work the next day as usual, and then I came home to everything packed and waiting for me on the front step. My dad was in the yard. I went over to him and he just said to me, "You don't have to leave. You know how mom can be." And in that moment, that very second, is when I made the decision, yeah, it's time. So I got in my car and I drove away. Now, I felt fear. I was also excited and kind of felt a sense of freedom. I went to my friend's house not knowing if I could even stay there. But luckily, she allowed me to stay. I helped her and her family a little bit. But what transpired in those next several years, I never could have been prepared for. Even though my father, he always taught my brother and I life lessons from his own experiences, I never expected to be in an abusive relationship, to be sexually assaulted. But every time I went through a challenge, I found a way to handle it on my own. So besides the embarrassment I felt, I would not go back to my parents and tell them what I was dealing with. I just felt like, hey, I made a choice and I have to deal with it. So I didn't ask for help. And because of that, I stayed in abusive relationships for years. I accepted certain behaviors that I knew better. I did not grow up seeing my dad treat a woman like that. Why did I choose who I was with? So I would have to say my greatest risk was making that decision that day in the yard with my dad to get in my car and leave, because I would not be the woman I am today. I would not be the mom I am today to my amazing son. I would not be the grandmother I am to my amazing grandsons had I not gone through these challenges. That made me stronger. That made me a woman that is now inspiring other women to get out of these abusive relationships, to know your worth, to know that you don't have to stay stuck like I did. So I am grateful that I made that decision. It was time for me to get out in the real world and find who I was, and I did. The only advice I would give to a woman out there is to know it's okay to ask for help. Don't hide, don't keep it a secret. Ask for help, because my greatest reward is what I'm doing now, inspiring other women and sharing my message. That is my greatest reward.
For a rose to thrive, water must travel from the roots through the xylem. The xylem is similar to the blood vessels within the body. And it makes you think, isn't it interesting how water, blood, love are so critical to one's survival? My name's Alethea Gay, and I'm going to share with you how my greatest risk led to my greatest reward. I'm a New Yorker for life. I grew up in the Bronx in the 1980s, and back then there wasn't a lot of encouragement for self-love in the way that it is now. It wasn't about the mushy stuff, right? It was survival. It was about toughness, mental toughness, which now I realize has a place in self-love. And I had my share of traumatic experiences. I lost many friends to gun violence, but I also lost family members to diseases like AIDS and cancer. And at that age, I didn't really know how to process death. I was just learning about life. And so for me, someone passing away meant a loss of love. See, I associated love with something that was outside of me. That self-love, that internal love, it took me a while to realize it. And I'll tell you, love, learning to love myself was my greatest risk. I remember when I found out I was pregnant, I was over the moon. But as quickly as that excitement started, the fear set in. Oh my God, what am I gonna do? You know, what if something happens to her? What if I drop her? It was that fear that you have as a new mom, but it ran a little deeper than that. I ended up having to see a counselor. And that's when I learned that through my traumatic experiences, a part of my brain may have been impacted. And that part of the brain that helps me regulate those emotions and that anxiety is the part that had probably been, again, significantly impacted by the experiences that I had growing up. When she was birthed into this world, it felt like Christmas. It felt like Christmas inside of me. See, my greatest risk was learning to love myself. And my greatest reward was giving birth to love. See, something woke up when I gave birth to my daughter, something within me. And over time, I realized that was that self-love. What do I do when I need to return to that reward, that self-love? I do things like yoga. I go out in nature, I hike, I run, I make time for myself. And making time for myself helps me realize how important I am.
Hi, my name is Idili Santiago, and we are born to risk but programmed to lose. And I've taken many risks in my life, in things that I shouldn't have even been thinking of doing. However, one of the biggest risks was more recently when I went full time into entrepreneurship. After 20 years as an employee, literally 20 years, I was let go. I was let go for violating an attendance policy. My son was getting sick. He had to have his adenoids taken out. But before that, he kept getting strep throat and he was sick. And I'm a mom before I'm anything else. And so I lost my job for the first time in my life. I had to process. That was a sad moment in time for me. I processed that information the entire weekend. You know, processing, crying, watching Netflix, reading a book, praying, eating ice cream. Yeah, that kind of processing. By the end of the weekend, I heard a small voice inside saying, "You're ready. It's time to go all in." And I was so grateful to hear that spirit talk to me because I had already been part-time in business. I had already been a motivational speaker. I've spoken in front of hundreds of people before. I was already in the entrepreneur bug, had already bit me. I was in classes. I was in a mastermind. It was time to grow. And when I heard that saying, "It's time, you're ready to go all in, no more part-time," I said, you know what? Time to go all in. I had a conversation with my husband and I said, I need 90 days. Just give me 90 days. Because as we all know, a one-income household is really, really hard nowadays. So I said, just support me. Give me 90 days. Let this thing come off the ground. Where God guides, God provides. And I really, really believe that. And I went all in 90 days. Here we are now. Time has passed and I'm a full-time entrepreneur. Still a mom, still a wife, believer before anything else. But super thankful that I took the biggest risk that I had my entire life, was going all in. Will I have more risk? I'm sure there'll be. I'm only in the second half of my life, so I'm sure there'll be plenty more. But one of the things that we have to realize is that we're born to risk, but programmed to lose. And I had to change that dynamic in my life. I get to choose to love to wake up every day and say, what am I risking today? Thank you.
It all started January 25th, 1983. I was born in Washington, D.C., raised in Montgomery County, Maryland all my life. Two amazing parents who immigrated to this country from Guatemala with no English, no money, and a high school education, pursuing the American dream, trying to create something special for their children so we can live a better life than they lived. And they've been married now going on 50 years. And they provided such an amazing foundation for us of hard work, of faith in the home, of what it is to pursue your dreams and not make excuses. My mother was cleaning multiple houses a day, 4 houses a day, 3 to 4 houses every single day. Blood, sweat, and tears. And my dad was working in the restaurant business, from a dishwasher to a busboy, to a server, to a supervisor, to a manager, to a district manager, to a regional manager, to eventually owning a couple restaurants. All in the pursuit of dreams and achieving the highest levels of success in life. And guess what? It took tremendous risk for them to do this. But that risk has paid off because they have instilled in me and my siblings the example of what it is to go after your dreams, the example of what it is to have the courage to overcome the fear and go after what it is that you want. It was, not the most glamorous of lives, but guess what? They gave us what we needed. And then eventually they moved into a bigger house, and then eventually a bigger house, and they ended up buying $1 million home and pursued the American dream, and now they're retired and traveling the country. My mom built a Jafra Cosmetics global company that she was a part of, and that took off, and she ended up with a 6-figure business, and they pursued the American dream. I say all this to say that guess what? When you go after your dreams, when you go after your goals, things happen. The greatest risk that I took as a result of the example that my parents provided was I had a 9-to-5 job. I was working every single day, 60 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week, making a standard $50K salary. My wife was a teacher full-time, and we were just struggling to get by. And one day I said, enough is enough. I'm gonna take the risk. I'm gonna go all in, and I'm gonna start a business. And guess what? I launched that business. And that business very quickly turned into 2 businesses and turned into 9 income streams. And now is $1 million business plus, and it's growing every single day. The greatest risk for me was leaving my safety net, my career, leaving that all behind and going all in on my business. And guess what? It's paid off, and my family is happier than ever. My wife is a stay-at-home mom, homeschooler. We have kid number 6 on the way. Life is great. Take the risk. It's so worth it.
Dad, I'm dating men. Those were the words I chose when I came out to my dad. And my dad and I just love each other. We've always been easy with each other. It's just been he's fun. And it's one of those relationships, to lose him, to have him reject me would have been more devastating than anybody else in my family. And my plan was, when I came out to my family, start with everybody else, practice on them, tell Dad last. So I grew up on a farm in South Louisiana. My dad worked in a mine. He was a boxer. He was captain of his football team. This is South Louisiana. This is not what your sons do. and he and I are hanging out on the farm, and I could just feel it. It's like the divine guidance, which I always tune into, saying, tell him now. And my head is like, well, no, he's last, not first. But there it is, tell him now. And so, Dad, I'm dating men began that conversation. It ended well with him. He has always loved me. And there were family members who did not, and they chose to reject me. They didn't want to have Christmas anymore. And I think when you're honoring yourself and you're taking risks, that's what can happen, right? There are people who are going to support you, love you, and there are those who will struggle with that. For me, I learned, and it's been a passion. It's like, my acceptance of me is what had to happen. I can be happy with me. I can have a great life whether the world loves gay people or not. And I continue to do that. And I was in my 20s when I came out to my dad, and I'm 61 now. And that, taking those risks, honoring myself, aligning with that divine intelligence, listening to it, has been a part of my life since then. And at 61, I have 4 lines of influence. I'm an author. I never planned on that. That was one of those, following that divine inspiration. And now I have 3 books of my own. I'm an international best-selling author on Amazon. I've also been featured in a Joe Vitale book and 5 other books. I teach workshops off of my books. I still do corporate consulting and training. I've taught for companies like Chevron, ExxonMobil, all over the world. And that's another line of influence. And that's another place I take risk and have followed my divine inspiration. I do one-on-one, and I do custom energy meditations to help people align with that divine solution rather than the energy of problems. And my 4th is I have photography, my garden photography in a couple of my books, and got the idea of doing an online store and feature your photography on gifts, and that became a 4th line of influence. So if you are out there, love yourself, honor yourself. There will be people who will love and support you. There will be those who don't. Do it anyway. And keep following that divine inspiration. And that requires going within and honoring yourself and just listening for that and following those divine inspirations.
The greatest risk I have ever taken for the greatest reward was saying yes to drugs and alcohol after tragically losing my brother. On March 10th, 2003, while I was at work, I found out about the passing of my 17-year-old brother, Gary John. I was completely beside myself. My entire world was turned upside down. I had no idea what to do with the way that I was feeling. I had a coworker offer me a glass of alcohol, a bag of drugs. I said yes, and the rest is history. I had no idea at that point in time that I was even taking a risk. I just wanted to feel better, and I didn't know how else to make that happen. Fast forward 15 years later, I was still using the same coping mechanisms to escape from any kind of pain that I was feeling in my life. And I was so angry with God for taking my brother that I had no relationship with him whatsoever. It was at the bottom of my addiction, my rock bottom, when I rekindled my relationship with my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I found myself on my knees crying out for him. It actually took me back because at that point in time, I didn't even believe in him. I cried out for God. I asked him to help me, and the rest is history with that. On February 26th, 2019, I became sober. I have never been more happy and more free in my entire life. And from that moment, it has been blessing after blessing. Of course, you still have the valleys and the mountains, but with God, I have found that I can navigate through anything with a sober mind and a sober heart. This has also been my greatest reward because through this experience, I have been able to reach back into the fire to help others that are going through similar struggles. Shortly after becoming sober, I started Be Happy Painting. My brother, John, moved back to help me with the business once it started to grow, and we were able to help other people who were coming out of addiction situations have a steady job with people that understood what they were going through to start rebuilding their lives. God is amazing, and the miracles that he can work are phenomenal and mind-blowing. His plan for my life will always exceed any of my expectations. Won't he do it? Yes, he will.
I grew up with so much trauma and fear in my life that I didn't take opportunities because I was afraid to fail. I was afraid of what people would say. I mean, I was pretty much in survival mode for years and years and years. I did what I had to do. I, took jobs just to make money. I worked hard, came home exhausted, rinse and repeat, single mom life. I didn't even have any dreams at that point. I figured I shouldn't even bother. Don't disappoint yourself. Why bother? Do what you have to do. But after years of this, I was tired of missing opportunities. I was tired of living with regret. And I I asked myself, how much longer do I have to live? I mean, it's morbid, right? But I didn't know if I could face God saying, I was too scared. I was too scared to use the gifts and talents you gave me to do anything else, so I buried them. Right? No way could I do that. So I prayed shortly after that. I prayed, God, please give me another opportunity to do something great with my life, to do something that will impact others. A few days later, I'm at the thrift store in the book aisle. There's a man there he was speaking really loud. And I heard him talk to someone about publishing a book. So I asked when he was done if he was a publisher, and well, yes. And that led me to meeting Emilio and Daniela of the Co-Author Network, and they explained that they did anthologies. I was like, wow, I didn't even know about that. I, of course, was fighting all the fear thoughts, right? I don't have the money, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not a writer, blah, 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 all the things we tell ourselves. And the reason why I had missed so many opportunities before, because I let those thoughts talk me out of it. But not this time. This is when I was going to take risks. So I called them a few days later and I said yes. I said yes to the opportunity. I submitted my chapter, and then another opportunity came up to do a speaking competition. Well, I thought, I don't know. I was terrified of speaking in public, like most people. But I'm saying yes, right? So I did say yes, and it's amazing. It's amazing what you find out, what you're capable of when you do things afraid. And it was a moment where I realized this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. And it was so difficult because, you think about the funds and I don't know what I'm doing. And what if I fail? You know what? What if? What's the worst thing that could happen? And I learned that it wasn't the worst thing, right? So now I know what I'm meant to do. I don't want to be like those people who, at the end of their lives, saying, I regret the things that I didn't do. And I finally said yes to the scary thing, and I did it. And I am amazed at what my life looks like now. There is no reward without risk.
July 13th, 1993 at 7:30 a.m. I was involved in a near-fatal offset head-on collision. I was wearing my glasses that morning when I went to work. A decision that saved my eyes instead of wearing my hard contact lenses. Why? Because my face hit the steering wheel. I was thrown from the car. I was rushed to the Elvis Presley Trauma Center, where I spent 3 days. I felt the doctors were not really listening to me. Why, you ask? Because they said I would be confined to a wheelchair because of the extensive damage to my body. I disagreed. And the greatest risk I took in my life was believing in me, ditching the doctors, which resulted in my greatest benefit. I am not in a wheelchair. I was not in a wheelchair at all. My journey, my amazing journey, took many years, 30 years, small transformational steps at a time that added up to be a lot. Faith, courage, hope just pulled me through. As I said, my belief in me that I could do this, my perseverance that I could do this. The world is a better place because I am still in it. Don't give up. Don't give in. Believe in yourself.
Risk and opportunity. When you really think about them, they go hand in hand. And for me, the rewards associated with the risk I've taken have been nothing short of life-changing. For me, my greatest risk was joining the United States Marine Corps. In 1986, I enlisted not because I was a great patriot, not because I needed a job or was looking for a way to pay for college. You see, I joined the Marine Corps to escape the streets of New York. After graduating high school, I had a great job at a prestigious law firm, and they were willing to pay for me to go to college and to law school if I wanted. But one single incident would change my mind and have me embark upon the greatest journey of my life. One filled with risk upon risk that would propel me to the highest levels within the military and provide me with more opportunities than I ever could have imagined if I would have stayed in New York with that great job. You see, shortly after graduating high school, I was the victim of a drive-by shooting. Luckily for me, my wounds were somewhat superficial, but it was in that moment that I realized that in order to change my circumstances, I actually had to change my circumstances. And after speaking to the recruiter, he gave me the opportunity to become one of the few, the proud, a United States Marine. You see, he made no promises and he told no lies. He simply said I could do more, be more, and become more. And with that, I was in. What was supposed to be just a 4-year enlistment turned into more than 30 years of service and attaining the highest enlisted rank one could receive, a Marine Corps Sergeant Major. I was given the opportunity to lead men and women all over the globe, including multiple combat tours, and that is one of the greatest awards I could ever have received. The opportunity to lead. That leadership and the leadership I received have led to a lifelong brotherhood, personal growth, and professional development that far exceeded any education I could have ever paid for. And now I have the opportunity to give back, the opportunity to pour into the next generation of leaders with one goal in mind: to help our future leaders gain the clarity, confidence, and the courage they need to succeed in any area of their lives. In short, the risk of leaving a great job for an unknown adventure gave birth to an opportunity to give back through creating a culture of what I call swag, which stands for succeeding with a goal. And my greatest reward was changing my mindset and changing my life.
An ancient Chinese proverb states a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Sometimes that one step can be very great risk, but with great risk come great rewards. Now, I've jumped out of an airplane more than once. I know how to fly an airplane. I'm certified as a scuba diver. I have a motorcycle endorsement on my driver's license. I've rescued 2 people at 2 different times out of a river. I've given birth to 4 children, had 1 miscarriage. I've taken those 4 children out of an unhealthy situation and gotten divorced. I've gotten remarried, and I've authored 13 books and co-authored 9 books. And I wear polka dots. Now, my greatest risk was when I was in 3rd grade, but it gave me the greatest rewards. And you may wonder, well, how can that be? You were only in 3rd grade. What can a 3rd grader do that's so risky? Well, for me, it was getting out on stage. And I know for many of you, being on stage is really scary. And I was. I looked out at all those empty chairs and I was terrified. I didn't want to do it. I complained to my sister, but I had made a commitment, so I needed to stick with it. The next night at the show, I look out at those chairs and everybody's smiling. They're happy. They're enjoying themselves. And all of the people around me that are going to be in the fashion show are excited and they're happy. And I became happy. And I went out there and I strutted my stuff and I put my hand out there for the young man at the end to take my hand. And everybody laughed at me. They hated me. I was mortified. I couldn't get off that stage fast enough. I ran and I hid. My sister was looking all over for me. We still had the show to complete. I was not answering her. I was so angry with her for making me do this. What was wrong with her? Well, a friend of hers finally found me talked to me and gave me a different perspective. That was the first reward I got. And it was a lifetime. I could carry that with me to look at things with a different perspective. Well, you'll have to read the story to see what happened. But I also got another gift. I was able to step through my fear and get back up on that stage again. Those were the greatest rewards I've ever received because they last me a whole lifetime. Take that one step through your fear, through the risk, and seek the reward.
Risk. Risk has two classifications. Risks you take where you have control, and risks you face which are caused by involuntary events. Can you have both? Absolutely. Can it be life-changing? Definitely. And I'm here to share my greatest risk with you that I ever took. I was in corporate, working that corporate job every day. I was climbing the proverbial ladder to get to management positions, and I did. But I realized I wasn't fulfilled. So I decided to open my own business since I sang professionally, where I could host karaoke events, DJ, work wedding bands on nights and weekends. And I felt fulfilled, but I burned the candle at both ends, and my health deteriorated. I started experiencing excessive dizziness, heart palpitations, panic attacks, undesired body changes, so much so that it led me to the doctor where I was diagnosed with hyperthyroid. They prescribed me a medication that I developed a severe allergy to, and it literally poisoned my entire system. So much so that to date, I still cannot take any pharmaceutical or allopathic medicine. But what I can only describe by divine intervention after the medical community told me that they've exhausted all means to help me, I found holistic modalities. And I followed it to the letter, so much so that I completely healed. And I realized I had to get myself in school, and I did. And I am proud to say that I became a board-certified holistic healthcare practitioner, a licensed massage therapist specializing in medical massage, a Reiki practitioner and teacher, and an ordained minister practitioner. And that helped me with that transformation of my life. I realized on good days, I felt like I can conquer the world. On bad days, I felt like my physical and emotional being was done. I couldn't get anything done. So I realized in my head, I had the power to change me. And I got to work. I started meditating. I started writing journals. I started doing mirror work. I started anything I can to change me. And this is where the risk comes in. After all that education and transforming myself, I decided not to go back to corporate. Instead, I became an entrepreneur. That's right. I opened my own business, the biggest risk I ever took. By doing so, I'm able to help other people and help them through their health challenges as well. And by doing that, I am fulfilled. And it led me to becoming a best-selling author and to host my own TV shows, my own radio shows, and I'm able to sing again. And I'm on the road currently on a world tour, the legendary rock bands, and currently making a studio album. My life scare combined with the power of prayer changed my life. I'm living my passion. What are you born to do? Are you willing to risk everything to achieve your dreams? Your greatest risk can be your greatest reward.
Greatest risk I've ever taken in my life almost took my life. All it takes is a split second to put yourself in a position that you may not ever be able to come back from. My greatest risk happened in my own home, taking a lighter, taking one of the most ferocious drugs, as we know of today, is known as crack cocaine. That risk was extreme drug addiction. It started from selling to abusing. And in that quick instant of a second, my life spiraled completely out of control. Sometimes it's the environment that you're in, the people you're around. And you see people do certain things and you may not question it yourself until you're in that position yourself.
that one simple risk turned into serving time. Manipulating my own family would have me stealing, robbing, taking advantage of people, all for that one little high. So I speak to those out there right now, there is hope. If you find yourself in this situation, whatever that risk may be, that you wake up and realize that, hey, this risk has completely taken control of my life. There is a way back. And that way back is through help, crying out, waking up and understanding that I might not be able to fight this and beat this today, whatever it may be. And there's greatness in every one of us. And that greatness I'm so grateful for is to be able to share the story, to not be afraid, to be honest, to be open. We all fall short. It may not be drugs. It could be anything. But the moment that you stand back up and you rise, that's the beauty. The reward is in you. Let your light shine. What is that light? The love, the intellect, the greatness, the health, the truth. Follow those 5 pillars and all the decisions you make. When you're dealing with people, you're dealing with places, you're dealing with things. Dance in those pillars of that light, that others may see your good works. We out of here. Peace.
The greatest risk I ever experienced that gave me the most significant return happened as a teenager when I decided to ask my crush if she wanted to be my girlfriend. Picture this. At a time I was unhealthy, had a bad haircut, crooked teeth, nerdy glasses. I was extremely shy and naive. I was the 3rd fattest kid in school, an outcast getting bullied daily by kids and teachers. I had nothing going on for me. Despite all this, I decided to ask my crush to be my girlfriend on Valentine's Day, knowing I had 0 chance of her saying yes. I decided to take a leap of faith and bought her some flowers, chocolates, and a Valentine's Day card. I was determined to make it happen. Her response, a gentle but razor-sharp no. It cut deeper than any physical wound ever could. At the moment, my world crumbled. The weight of rejection crushed my spirit. But hitting in that devastating blow were the seeds of my transformation. I had to decide to either accept and settle with that version of Fico or transform into a new version of myself. A fire ignited in my soul, and I chose transformation, embarking on a 2-year journey of self-discovery and reinvention. I ran until my lungs burned, pedaled until my muscles screamed, and played basketball like a madman. My transformation went beyond the physical. It impacted every aspect of my life. I scored a cross-country scholarship, a testament to my determination. My journey was far from over. The demanding student-athlete life proved too much, leading me to the Army ROTC and ultimately a commission as a communications officer in the United States Army. Through combat deployments, challenges, and triumphs, my resilience never wavered. I married my gorgeous Doris, built a family, and retired as a lieutenant colonel, always embracing that rejection wasn't defeat. It catalyzed my greatness. As I reflect on my life's journey, I understand that most significant risk I ever took, the one with the greatest return, stemmed from that fateful teenage no. It sparked a fire within me that still burns bright, fueling my constant growth. I now believe that this rejection was a divine message from God, telling me that He had more incredible plans for me. And so I embraced the challenge, leading me on a path of transformation and self-discovery that has brought me to where I'm at today. I now view every rejection as a sign that God protects me from things that do not align with my purpose. For me, rejection isn't a barrier. It's a doorway to limitless possibilities, a chance to shed comfort and embrace the extraordinary. My story testified to resilience power, embodying how we can turn rejection into redemption.
If you sit in comfort and don't take risks, you're probably not going to get very far. So I take risks now so that I can live my soul purpose and serve others. My family came from Sicily through Ellis Island at my father's side, and they came here to create opportunity not only for themselves, but for generations that would come after them. They took risks. They took a risk leaving the country that they were born in and that they knew, the country where they were comfortable in, where they understood the language, to come to America where they didn't know the language, that they were unsure of what they were going to face, just so that they would have opportunities. I don't know if you can take a bigger risk than that, but the risk that they took paid off. And I'm proud to not only be Sicilian, as my father's family came from Sicily, but Portuguese, as my mother's family came from Portugal, and American. America is built from immigrants whose traditions we now use, and we have mixed all together. There's no other country like ours, and the risks that they took are now part of my life and part of my legacy. I learned that it was important to take risks. I also learned that it's important to give back. I learned from my family that it was important to not only live your sole purpose, but to use that to serve others. I sometimes think about how my grandmother must have felt because she came a year before my father, grandfather, uncles, and aunts. So my uncle, my oldest uncle, and my grandmother, Antoinette Paxia, came here to America first so that she could save money to send to them so that they could come. I can't imagine having to leave some of your kids behind and leave your husband and come to a country that you did not know, just so that you can start to save and build a life and send for the rest of your family. How scared she must have been. I'm honored to be a Paxia, and I'm honored that my family was able to come here and create a life for not only me, my sister, my cousins, but my children. And I hope that my children learn from me and my family of what it's like to go ahead and live life taking risks so that you can better your life and the life of others. And what risks are you not taking? Maybe you need to stop and think and take those risks so that you can create a better life for you and your family.
Courage and faith. Yes, that's what it took for me to take the first step into the greatest risk I ever taken in my life, relocating from New York City to the Carolinas. It was a very hard decision for me to make as a single mom, and because having lived in New York City almost my entire life, it was all I knew. It was the city where my son was born and lived his entire life. I was leaving behind one of my brothers, the one that I am the closest to. And to top it off, I was leaving my father behind, who was struggling and going through the early stages of Alzheimer's. It was indeed a very difficult decision for me to make. But deep in my heart, I knew it was time to go. Moving into a new state where I knew no one, all I had was the hope and desire for a fresh start for me and my son, and the faith that my Father God was going to provide and guide us through it all. During the process and while getting acclimated, I often doubted myself. I often doubted my decision. I spent so many nights crying, feeling depressed, feeling discouraged, having conversations with God, praying and pleading with Him. But despite all of that, I knew it was the right decision. It was just time to go and hit that restart button. I knew God had a greater plan for me and my son, greater than I can even imagine. And I knew that it was another opportunity for me to get closer to Him, to just trust Him and see in hindsight how much He has blessed me and my son. In less than 2 years of having relocated here to the Carolinas, I was able to buy my house, my own house. Something I tried so many times in New York. but could not accomplish because he put so many roadblocks on the way, which I now can see why. My son now has friends. He's more socially stable because in New York he struggled with that because he was being bullied. My business is growing. I have met so many amazing people who have been such a support and such a blessing for me and my son. And furthermore, I am now collaborating in 4 different books and even the opportunity to have my own and write my own book. So, what am I telling you and trying to tell you with this? Life is uncertain, absolutely. And sometimes we should embrace the unknown, chase our dreams, go and push through fears and challenges and how hard the road may seem ahead. Not give up. Because remember, no pain, no gain.
In the heart of Brooklyn, New York, I found myself at a crossroads that only those familiar with struggle could truly understand. In the shadows of poverty, hunger, and adversity, my journey began not just of a personal ambition, but of breaking free from the generational curse that enslaved my family for decades. My childhood was defined by the stark realities of inner city life. As one of 4 children in a cramped apartment, poverty was a constant presence. The windows were covered with plastic floral curtains, and I only owned 2 dresses and 2 pairs of socks. My father's hard work during the week only revealed the double life with a second family, leaving my resilient mother to navigate single parenthood alone. Our meals often consisted of Chef Boyardee and white rice. But I always knew there had to be more. Witnessing my mother's sacrifices, I vowed to break free from the cycle, praying to never be hungry again. I decided to forge a path and risk it all to pursue the American dream against all odds. Education became my beacon, my escape from poverty. Balancing multiple jobs and late-night classes became the norm. Such sacrifice laid a brick of the foundation of the future ahead that was fraught with challenges, particularly in a male-dominated workplaces as UPS that I entered. The demands of my managerial roles often meant long hours, pulling me away from my children during their upbringing. I've missed Christmas concerts, family dinners, birthdays, and I understood as I do now that the sacrifices then would pave them a better future for them later. My risking all was aimed at them to pursue their dreams without the weight of student loans, to have a home they could truly call their own, and to live a life free from the hardships that I once endured. The sacrifices were immense, training financial stability for deferred dreams, personal time eclipsed by personal demands and professional demands, yet each decision was driven by a mother's love and a vision of generational change, because where you start doesn't have to determine where you end up. With unwavering determination, you can propel yourself to your desired destination. Generational wealth, once an intangible dream, has become a tangible reality. It's not just about my achievements, but the legacy I've crafted for those who come after me. Sometimes I wonder, was it worth it all? But if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. I would risk everything again so that my children and grandchildren have a better future and a brighter one. From the crowded streets of Brooklyn to the pinnacle of success, I've embodied breaking generational curses and forging new legacies. From corporate America to entrepreneurship, and now becoming an award-winning author, my story challenges others to confront barriers, embrace sacrifice, and believe that with perseverance, anything is possible, and if only you are willing to take risks. I am Diva Mejias.
Death has been chasing me even before I was born. So I died and was born on the same day. My mother was having a C-section, and she woke up during the C-section, and, through everything, all of that, she ended up having an asthma attack, and she died. And when she died, I died. because of my health situations, I'm not even supposed to be living the life that I am living right now. I have a TBI from a fall when I was a kid. I have a metal plate in my head that was put in right before I hit puberty, around 7, 8 years old. I suffer from it mentally, physically, all of it in between. I have seizures, epilepsy, memory loss, short term and long term, sleep apnea, and a whole number of other neurological and cognitive issues. Then also later on in life as an adult, I died 2 other times. And 2 other times I died, I went to hell both times. And demons were there. They literally told me that I'm going to hell, that this is where I'm going. And I just come to. But when I come to, I'm in the hospital. I've died. I've met death. Has been a regular part of my life. I deal with these issues. I'm going to deal with the issues for the rest of my life. They're not going anywhere. I still see hell, smell hell, taste hell, the blood, the screaming, the yelling, the visuals, the nightmares. I have it all. And after that, my whole perspective on life kind of just changed, and my worldly life changed, and changed for the worst. Things just went all downhill. Like I lost everything. But then I had spiritual awakening, Holy Ghost type of moment. And then the next day I went to church. And it's like that scripture sermon, everything was for me, was spoken directly to me. And then after that day, that's when speaking and writing came into my life, and I could literally see the difference on different parts of my life. That's when clarity hit, things started hitting, memories started coming back, and just went on from there. And then that's how like I found my God-given purpose, and that's how I know living is my greatest risk, because I am not supposed to be alive. I am only alive by the grace of God. Literally, that's how I know. I am happy speaking about my life. I am happy speaking to others. I'm not ashamed of anything I've been through, good and bad. I am a divine warrior. I am here for a reason. I know I'm here for a reason. I am here for a purpose. To find your purpose, your dream, and no matter what, understand, you dig deep and you move and keep moving no matter what.
You've just witnessed these incredible stories of perseverance, courage, and transformation. It changed their lives and those that surround them. What risk are you willing to take?